Oh no, what happened to our build? What happened to this thing? Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is Boost My Build, the series where we take your PC build list, we tear them up, we put them back together, and we massively increase your performance. And we've got two totally crazy builds for this episode. We have a $1,000 mini ITX build that's making all the classic small form factor mistakes and getting terrible performance. Can we get them back on track? And we've got a $1,500 1440p gaming PC when they want to play on an ultra-wide OLED gaming monitor, have an amazing performance, but oh my goodness, is their build in trouble? Remember, if you get value out of this video, give it a like, because it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. We've got Soul. Soul says, hey Jason, my little sister wants to build a PC for her time at college and games in her downtime. Games like Red Dead Redemption 2, Fortnite at 1080p. She's seen your Fractal Terra case. Oh no, I can see where this is going already, and was drawn to the small form factor for her college dorm. Yeah, it probably would be. You could also look at micro ATX as well. I'm not convinced with her choices. Oh, it's getting worse. Her max budget is $1,000. But what she doesn't know is I want to gift her my case or throw in an extra $200. Okay, so you're going to give her the case. This could all go terribly wrong. Let's see what you got. Oh, it happened. And I knew this was going to happen as soon as we said mini ITX. I knew the costs were just going to balloon out of control, and we were going to make some massive performance cuts in order to make this thing work. And what am I talking about? Well, you finished at $949. That's getting a free case, by the way, a free Fractal Terra mini ITX case, but there's not that level of performance here. I would say there's like a $640 build, maybe $600 build in front of me. Let's just go into the number one thing, just absolutely burns my eyeballs at $1,000 price point, is you went with the RX 7600 8GB GPU. And you might say, oh, what's wrong with that? You could have also gone with a 4060 8GB GPU. I would have been equally upset about it. I'm less upset about this one. It costs a little bit less. But the reason is this is just not an appropriate level GPU for a $1,000 system. In particular, in 2024, we want to get out of 8 gigs of VRAM and into 12 at least as quickly as possible, if not 16. For $1,000, we should be spending almost half that on our GPU. So we should be spending, you spent $250 here. By the way, this GPU only has a performance level of 6650XT, 8GB. You can pick one of those up for like $219, $220 right now. So I would have gone that direction instead. But honestly, we just don't want any of these trash tier 8GB GPUs. Games like Hogwarts Legacy, Red Dead Redemption 3, I'm sure whenever it comes out, and others are using more than 8 gigs, even at 1080p right now. So let's just ditch this thing and move on to something else. I get why we went with Ryzen 5700X. It seems like we kind of got stuck because everything else was too expensive. And I just checked Intel motherboard prices, and I just checked Ryzen 7000 like AM5 prices, and yeah, mini ITX motherboards are a real problem. And I think that's why we ended up going with 5700X. We don't need this CPU, by the way. The 5600 would have been $5, would have saved about $20. And honestly, I probably would have wanted to go that route and jump up in terms of GPU performance to someone with 12 gigabytes if we can. I don't know. We'll see if we can put AM5 in here as well. It's going to be really tough. For the cooler, the Noctua NHL9i Chromax Black cooler, it's fine. It's a great cooler. We're space constrained in this PC case, and we're only going to be able to go with a very, very low profile cooler like this. My big problem with it is $55. At $55, just kind of expensive. We are never going to see this thing. It is dead silent though. But there's not a ton of coolers out there for this like size of a case, so maybe we'll just get stuck with it. For the board, we went with the ASRock B550 Phantom Gaming ITX. Now, the kicker here is this is basically a budget system with a Ryzen 5000 series CPU, but we're spending $162 on the motherboard when there are micro ATX motherboards out there for $89 that basically are gonna do just about the same thing. So it's a little painful with this motherboard. I don't know, we're spending a lot of money here. I think we can do better. Don't understand why we went with 32 gigs of RAM. And honestly, we went with some real garbage tier RAM, but this is kind of expensive too, by the way. So we got to check all the bad boxes there, all the dumpster fire boxes. So we went with this 32 gigabyte 3200 CL22 kit. Yikes. Is that even like an XMP profile? I honestly don't know here. It is. It's an XMP profile. Oh my goodness. So this must be absolute garbage tier silicon that they're clocking up to CL22 3200. So this is an absolute no-go. We want to get way better RAM here. Kingston NV2. Look, this is a good budget tier, PCIe Gen 4, NVMe, no DRAM on it. I think it has an SLC cache if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it has a host memory buffer process on it. It's a good kind of budget level drive and will be fine for anything that we want to do. Talking quickly about the case, the Fractal Design Terra Mini ITX, everyone loves this case because of how small it is, but that's also one of its big problems and why these costs on these builds balloon out of control. Look how small that thing is. I will just say, I don't typically recommend these for first-time builders, especially these really, really super tight cases. Could look at a micro ATX case instead, just something to consider here. For the power supply, I don't know what the deal is with the SF750 here. It's just way too expensive, absolutely way too expensive right now. If you didn't watch our best PSU 2024 video, you can find way better deals on $169 for 750 watts. All told, $949, we're basically getting a $600 PC level of performance out there, and you're even throwing in a free case on that. Look, it's gonna look amazing, but we gotta get this thing to perform amazing too, and I think we can do it. Well, there's the $1,000 mini ITX, but max FPS gaming PC build. You're gonna get way more performance out of this thing, and it's just gonna be really insane. But I actually went $23.84 over the budget. Now, I did this a number of ways. I tried older generation CPUs in here, and you just don't save a lot of money. And it's just like, this is one of these things where I'm just gonna tell you, find the $23.84, make it happen. This does include, of course, you gifting the case for free, your Fractal Design Terra case. Let's quickly punch through this build because we're gonna hit that ITX and we're gonna hit huge levels of performance, 1440p or insane levels at 1080p. Let's start off where else the GPU. I went with the Power Color Fighter RX 7700 XT. Was originally going to go with the Sapphire Pulse one. However, as I was doing this, it seemed to have sold out of Newegg. So I went for the Power Color Fighter. There's also an ASRock one I think is also relatively slim, but double check the specs of the card, the length and the width against what you're going to do in the case. This is one reason I don't recommend ITX or mini ITX builds. The first time PC builders, I'm hoping you both have experience. It seems like you do. It's gonna give you way more performance for $399. How much more performance, you ask? Well, here we are. This is the TechSpot RX 7600 XT review. This was done in January, so relatively fresh data here. And we can see the difference in the GPU that you picked, which is the RX 7600, or even like look at the 4060, and then the difference between that and the RX 7700 XT, it's like 50% more FPS out there. And this is a 12 game average at 1440p, and these titles tend to be single player titles that really have high levels of graphic fidelity at ultra settings. So this is pretty much as hard as you can hammer the GPU, and you're still getting 92 average FPS across a wide range of titles at 1440p Ultra. So huge performance advantage. And the bigger thing, we've got 12 gigs of VRAM to play around with instead of just 8, which is going to future-proof us for now and in some time to come. For the rest of the build, listen, I wanted AM5 in here. I tried an Intel build in here. I tried Ryzen 5000. You don't save a lot. And I think at this level of GPU performance, it would be nice to step up to like a Ryzen 5000 level CPU or like Intel 13600K. I didn't want to deal with all the cooling requirements for that. So we're going to go with a super power efficient chip in the Ryzen 5 7600. It does come in with included Ray Stealth cooler. You could use that. However, I decided to add an aftermarket cooler, spoiler alert, but I will say we're not going to use Precision Boost Overdrive on this, and you will see why in just a moment. So you could just go ahead, if you need to save a little bit of money, you could go with the included stock cooler instead. For the cooler, I just went with kind of a cheapy Thermalright low profile cooler. There's like a million different versions of this cooler. Remember, everything's linked down in the video description. $20. This is all you need to cool the Ryzen 7 7600. And by the way, if only the 7600X is available for some reason, because the 7600 keeps selling out, buy that instead for like $8 more. There's really no difference between the two. This cooler is going to keep you absolutely cool. And we're not going to see it. We don't need RGB. We don't need an all black cooler in a solid case that we're never going to see the cooler. The motherboard is where ITX builds always have issues. Either they're way too expensive or they're not having the features we want. I went with a compromise board here. I typically do not recommend the A620 chipsets because they don't include Precision Boost Overdrive. support on the board. So you're not gonna be able to use Precision Boost Overdrive. You're just gonna be able to run this CPU essentially at stock. I think that is absolutely fine for this build and the GPU that we have. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. I do like the Gigabyte A620i-AX. Now it only has one M.2 slot on it, should be fine. But just know that. Now you could always add a SATA drive in the future, has a couple of SATA ports as well. It's got entry-level audio, but it's a pretty good entry-level motherboard feature for AM5, and it only costs $140. For the RAM, we went super basic, DDR5 6000 CL30, and the only kits you can get are 32 gigabyte kits in the US, at least at these speeds. So $97 is pretty much the bare minimum. There's an Alloy kit out there that I haven't seen anyone do anything with. It's like $92. I'm not sure I'd save the $5 just yet. I'll go ahead and buy one and see how it works out. But this is pretty good. Now there's an RGB kit as well. You don't need RGB on this, but if they happen to be the same price, I do like the Team Group T-Force Delta kits as well. I've used a lot of them, but $98 for good RAM. For the drive, I stuck it out with your Kingston NV2. Good SSD, $60 right now. A good sale on it, 2 thumbs up. For the PSU, I found a good deal on the Cooler Master, 750 watt. That's all you really need for this build is about 750 watts, actually probably even a little bit less than that. So don't overspend on the PSU. This is a B tier rated PSU, perfectly adequate for what we're doing. I've used the 850 myself in our previous mini ITX build, I should say, that we did last summer. Really like this, fully modular. It's gonna fit in the case. 2 thumbs up. So overall, for $1,023.84, we're getting way more performance than that build we had before that was really kneecapped by a really weak GPU selection and kind of some other really questionable choices in terms of RAM and other thing else. So we're going to get max FPS at 1440p is what I would recommend here, or insane frame rates at 1080p. This build is going to last you for a while, and you're getting that cool mini ITX build aesthetic that you've been looking for. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. All right, we got CamZone. CamZone says they want a mainly high FPS gaming computer. It takes full advantage of the OLED monitor that they already have. All right, we got OLED, so I'm assuming 1440p, possibly 4K. We'll have to check it out. I'd like to get back into video editing, but just for fun. All right, so this is gaming first. Gaming first. They normally play single player games like Stellaris and Sony re-releases, so that's like PS5 re-releases like Horizon Zero Dawn, Nioh, Destiny 2. Not sure between Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA GPUs, but you have a $1,500 budget. You better not have an Intel GPU in that thing for $1,500, let me tell you. And you want minimal or single tone RGB. Well, that's not a big deal. You have control of the RGB. You can set a single color if you want. You rock, Jason. I like that part. Let's see what you got. Oh no, what happened to our build? What happened to this thing? Okay, what am I talking about? I'm talking about you spent $1,234. First of all, you didn't even spend your whole budget. You got $250 less, and I'm looking at the GPU and my eyes bleed. My eyes bleed when I look at this GPU. Not because it's a terrible GPU, but it's terrible GPU for this build. And I see some other problems here too that I would, to me, this is kind of a no-go until we fix them. But let's start off. You had a 1440p OLED gaming monitor, but it's an ultra wide. So an ultra wide is going to be harder on your GPU or demand more of our GPU than a regular widescreen because there's just more pixels to render. So it's something to keep in mind here. Let's talk about the GPU. Again, when we're building a gaming PC, we want the biggest, fastest GPU we can afford, and then just a CPU that won't bottleneck it. And I think we did the exact opposite here. We went with an Intel GPU, not in a $1,500 build. We hear now that Battlemage is coming by Black Friday of this year. So we're expecting like an October, November launch for Battlemage. We'll see what the performance is. I wouldn't wait for it. It's not like NVIDIA, right? Or AMD, where you know the track record of performance is going to be there. I wouldn't do it. And right now, the Arc A7 7016 gigabyte, this one's expensive, by the way. I feel like we got really kind of focused on, it looks cool. I'm going to give you that. It looks like a super cool graphics card. The performance is not really there for what we're trying to do, especially to drive a 1440p super ultra wide. Yes, it's got 16 gigs of VRAM, but we should be buying like a $500 or actually, no, a $750 graphics card at this point. This is just not it. This is about half as much. I see we made some other mistakes too. We went like with the Ryzen 7 7700X. I don't understand what AMD is doing with the Ryzen 7700 and 7700X. They're priced way inappropriately, in my opinion. If you want gaming, the 7600 delivers super value. If you want max gaming, you have a super high-end GPU, you jump up to the 7800X3D, and I just don't know what the CPU is even for, especially if you're just doing amateur video editing. I have a Ryzen 7600X in this PC right here, and I run an entire recording studio off of it, including video editing. Not our only video editing PC. My wife has a super high-end one, but It's absolutely adequate for anything that you're going to do. And I just don't see why we're overspending $100 here. Cooler, I do like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin. There's no price in here. It looks like we're like really trying to force this whole no RGB aesthetic. I just want to emphasize, you can turn the RGB off. You can also just turn it to like white or a single color or something like that. You don't have to be afraid of RGB. You don't even have to plug it in, the RGB in, if you don't want to. So I just kind of feel like sometimes people are actually afraid of RGB or buying RGB parts. If they're the best value, you should definitely do that. The other thing I'll say about this cooler, it's just kind of overkill, obviously, if we're going to go down with a CPU. If we're going to go up to a 7800X3D, we may go ahead and keep it. We went with the Gigabyte B650 Gaming X AX V2. I don't think Gigabyte is selling this board anymore, at least not in the US. The prices I'm seeing here are basically, they're all out of stock. So basically what they've replaced this board with is the Aorus Elite AX V2, which is a great motherboard, has, I think, even better USB connectivity. You're looking to spend about $200 on your motherboard. It depends on what you want to do with it. If your primary focus is gaming, I think there's some better options. You went with the Silicon Power Zenith Gaming 32 gigabyte kit. This is 6000 CL30 stuff at 32 gigs, 99 bucks. Absolutely fine. It looks like you're kind of going for like a mixed black and white aesthetic. I do like that. For the drive, you went with the Crucial P3 Plus 2 terabytes. It's a little expensive. I don't know why it's so much more expensive. It looks like it's just out of stock at Amazon, was selling for a more reasonable price. 2 terabytes of storage, about probably what we need. This is about in the ballpark of what we want to spend. However, I will just say, if we're going to spend 130, I think there are drives with DRAM that I prefer over this one. I went with the Thermaltake Series 300 TG. I think this is a great case. Personally, it's not my aesthetic, but I know other people kind of really like the real designy look of it, especially kind of with the different mesh patterns and everything in it. $85 right now at Best Buy. It's hard to beat. A PSU's a mistake. 650 watts, not enough power for our build. Now, this is not like horrendously out of whack, especially since it's one of the new ATX 3.0 PCIe 5.0 ones. So it's built to handle more of those transient loads that the GPUs and the CPUs kind of can put out. That being said, I would feel more comfortable if we just comfortably size this, and it's not going to be that much more money. All told, $1,234. I mean, it's just not a $1,234 PC to me. Our GPU is massively undersized. We've oversized our CPU. Kind of seems like we're a little bit afraid of picking parts that have RGB on them because we don't want to know what to do, and maybe we didn't even get the best value everywhere. I call this the $1,500 amazing gaming and creator PC because it's going to give you amazing gaming, and it's a great creator PC. Honestly, not that much difference in the PC I'm sitting right next to that I run my whole kind of, at least the recording side of our YouTube studio out of all the time. I do Photoshop on it. I do video edits. I finished out at $1,496.72. The other thing I will say, I play a lot of Helldivers 2 on this 4K high frame rates. Now you're going to play at 1440p, so obviously you should get even more FPS. This is going to give you huge performance from the GPU because we're actually going to spend enough on our GPU. I went with the ASRock Phantom Gaming RX 7900 XT. Now, listen, there's a number of 7900 XTs for right around $700. The Sapphire Pulse I was going to originally put in here. Literally just sold out moments ago. Hopefully it'll come back in. If not, there's like the Asus Tough Gaming one is like 30 bucks more. If you want to get that, that's a really, really good model as well. Or you can stick with something like this. Insane levels of FPS. Insane levels of FPS. I have the Power Color Hellhound one. That one's a little bit more expensive. Not sure I would spring for the extra money for this. I know you also don't want, you're like allergic to RGB, so we don't want to do that to you. But these are going to be great cards. Your alternative, of course, is the RTX 4070 Ti Super. You can find those more like $799, though the MSRP ones seem to have just completely sold out within the last 24 hours. So if you want NVIDIA in here, just throw in another $150 and that's what it costs. In terms of performance right now, look at this. Look at the chart toppers up there. The RX 7900 XT and RTX 4070 Ti Super, 127 and 120 FPS respectively. Now, let's talk about the GPU. In fact, they don't have an ARC GPU, I was just noticing on this chart. This is the TechSpot RTX 4070 Ti Super review. Link down in the video description. Check it out. They go through all the individual titles as well. Might be super helpful for you. I would put that card somewhere between the 6700 XT and the 2070 Super. So you're talking at least 100% more FPS, if not even more. At least 100% more FPS. That's an insane difference, an insane difference. That's the kind of performance that you want to drive for that ultra-wide OLED monitor. For the rest of the build, listen, we went super value oriented here. I went with a Ryzen 7600. Should need no introduction. $200 right now. Great price for this CPU. Yes, I know we've got new Ryzen CPUs coming. They're going to charge a lot more. They're going to charge the price premium. And so just go with something like this. I think this is a great value right now. It's not really going to be eclipsed by what the 9600, especially at this GPU level. I think you'll be just fine. Just fine. You could, of course, go up to the 7800X3D, and I definitely know that CPU is not going to be eclipsed anytime soon, but it's almost twice as much, almost twice as much. I think this is where our performance lies. I think you're going to be super happy with this. For the cooler, I know you were allergic to RGB. I went with the Thermalright Assassin X120 SE white. No RGB on this one. Look, they make a million of these coolers. You can, in fact, get the white RGB one for the same price. For some reason, I don't know. Thermalright, what is going on with you folks out there? You introduce like a new cooler every time you go to the bathroom out there, and they're all the same. They're all basically the same versions. $19, this is really all you need to cool it. Now you could consider, of course, something like an all-in-one liquid cooler down the road, but this is to get you started, and this is gonna give you great performance. For the RAM, I stuck it out with your Silicon Power DDR5 32GB kit. I will say that I do like the Team Group T-Force Delta kits a little better. I don't know what the actual chips in these are. I know what they are in the T-Force Delta kits, so you might consider that the 6000 CL30 RAM. Otherwise, these are absolutely fine, especially if you're afraid of RGB, and I have no quarrel with them at $100. For the motherboard, I went with the MSI Mag B650 Tomahawk. If you didn't watch our best Ryzen motherboard 2024 video, this was one of our top picks. I just like the price stability in it. It's right around $200, which is what you were looking at. Has a really good section in terms of the USB rear I/O on it. It comes with upgraded ALC 4080 audio on it, and not much more to say. It's a great, just super solid value motherboard that's on the more premium side for $200. For the SSD, and just in order to scrape us under that $1,500 price point, I just went with a similar performance level that you were looking at. Way cheaper though. That's the Team Group MP33. It looks what happened with that Crucial drive. It's just sold out for some reason, so that's why it's a higher than normal price. Otherwise, I would pick this up, 2 terabytes. We use these all the time and really love them. For the case, I like the Thermalright Series 300 TG. This is the case that you like. It's got 2 included ARGB fans in the front. Don't panic. You can turn the RGB off. It's okay. Or you can just have a single color. And then it comes with a non-RGB fan in the rear. You can consider, of course, getting 2 more exhaust fans for the top if you want. You can pick up a couple of Arctic like P12 fans. I think they're right around like $9 each if you want to get the black ones. And then they even got the PST ones, which daisy chain together, which is super nice too. Just a great way to add a little additional airflow to the case if you need it. For the power supply, we needed a little bit more wattage based on how we calculate. If you haven't watched our best PSU 2024 video that we just dropped recently, watch it. We go through why we size the PSUs the way we do. I know some people think it's a little conservative, but listen, how much more are we really spending here over the one that you were looking? $10 is all we're only spending $10 more for this PSU. It's A tier rated. It's 750 watts. It's the Be Quiet Pure Power 12M. I really like this unit. We've used it in a number of things. I will say the only thing I don't like about it is it has a really ugly sticker on the side. And if you're using one with a cutout, I know yours has a mesh cover over the front. I think it'll look absolutely fine on that. But if you're going to go switch to a case with a cutout, I would probably pick a different PSU. So all told, $1,496.72. You're going to get an amazingly performative 1440p ultra-wide gaming PC, and you're going to be able to do video editing, Photoshop, recording, anything that you want to throw at this thing. It's going to look super cool. I think that black and white aesthetic on this is really going to come through really well. We didn't get you a ton of RGB out there, so you don't have to be afraid of that. I think you're really going to really enjoy this build. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description, so check those builds out for pricing and availability in your region. And of course, if you got value out of this video, hey man, give it a like. It really makes a difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. Speaking of cool content, did you just check out our Ryzen 7800X 3D build guide? Check it out right here. We go through everything that you need to know to put together an amazing 7800X 3D gaming PC. And we'll catch you on the next one.